Monsters, known as calamities, had taken over the earth and unleashed disaster upon humanity. Hope had been abandoned, and people awaited their impending death. That's when the 12 zodiacs appeared to rescue humanity. The gods bestowed power upon 12 individuals known as saints, assigning them the task of eradicating the calamities. However, a human named Lee Jian awakened without the divine god's blessing to aid in the battle against the calamities. The 13 zodiacs entered the demon temple to confront the most formidable calamity of all, the Crimson Eyes. Witnessing the immense power of Crimson Eyes, the others fled, but Lee Jian remained determined to defeat him. Unfortunately, one of them betrayed Lee Jian, stabbing him in the back and pushing him into a trap. Feeling the pain from his wounded arm, Lee Jian contemplated his impending death. However, he mustered his strength, gripping a knife in his teeth. Lee Jian vowed not to go down without a fight, swearing that he would not perish until he had avenged the person who had betrayed him. Two people ate fried chicken. Hugo Otters warned Lee Jian, the man in the hood, that he would die tomorrow. Lee Jian called Hugo Otters by his Korean name, Oh Taeksu, and ignored the warning. Lee Jian understood Hugo's worries but reassured him that he would not die. Lee Jian claimed to have killed more calamities than all 12 saints combined. He asked Hugo if he truly believed that Lee Jian would die. Hugo Otters understood Lee Jian's point, but still couldn't shake his worries. The Demon Tower is where the worst calamity that annihilated humanity resides. It started on the last day of the 20th century when the calamities suddenly appeared, overpowering humans. 12 self-proclaimed divine gods emerged amid chaos and horror. The gods promised humans the power to overcome calamities and selected 12 awakened individuals. However, an unblessed 13th awakened appeared, overwhelmingly strong, known as Lee Jian. Hugo thanked Lee Jian for helping conquer the Demon Tower. Lee Jian dismissed Hugo's lip service and requested fried chicken for 5 years as compensation. They discussed eliminating the Crimson Eye for incredible rewards. Another person aimed for 100 billion won since they faced the worst calamity. Lee Jian suggested settling for a 10-year stay in a 7-star hotel in Hawaii. Insulted, the man told Lee Jian to accumulate wealth before making deals. Lee Jian considered them mere thugs, not saints. They were warned not to rush to the incident site to maximize rewards. Lee Jian felt disgust towards them. In a room, they froze upon seeing the Demon Tower's boss, the Crimson Eye. The ground shook, flames engulfed the vanished tower, and the saints fled. Lee Jian leapt towards the Crimson Eye, but he fell into a trap, struck by a sword. Lee Jian couldn't focus or bother with trivial matters in the trap. His plan was to keep slashing as the trap summoned infinite calamities. He promised revenge against the betrayers upon escape. 20 years later, Lee Jian killed all calamities in the trap before passing out from collapsing rocks. 2 people ran in a destroyed city, pursued by calamities. A leap from a calamity almost hit them, but instead surrounded them. They witnessed a tower exploding and saw a man emerge from the wreckage. They couldn't believe someone survived the tower. Lee Jian, filled with rage, now pursued those who betrayed him. The people who first witnessed Lee Jian's return were curious because they didn't know who he was initially. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Orange-class calamities were being killed like bugs by Lee Jian. Lee Jian noticed the presence of the 2 people and immediately attacked them. However, he stopped right away when he realized they were humans. The 2 were in a panic as they couldn't believe that a man would come out from a tower. While they were preoccupied with their frantic conversation, Lee Jian sensed a calamity behind him. The boss of the calamity came and attacked Lee Jian with a powerful roar that decimated everything it hit. Surprisingly, the 2 survived the attack and were shocked to see Lee Jian standing in front of them. After taking the calamity boss's attack, Lee Jian leaped towards the calamity and struck it on the head. With a single attack, the boss calamity fell and was knocked out. The 2 people were astonished by what had just happened. Curious if that was all from the boss calamity, Lee Jian then asked the 2 people to buy him some food and clothes. After the incident, the 2 treated Lee Jian to food but were surprised when he was able to eat food worth $10,000. They mentioned that they didn't have any money on them, so he held back. They then asked if Lee Jian was a disciple or a divine cadre captain and why he was near the tower at the time. They were surprised when Lee Jian answered that he came out of the tower. However, Lee Jian was more curious about one of the people who had treated him, as he sensed a magical power emanating from him. They explained that the man was a disciple who awakened with the blessings of a god. Lee Jian wasn't fond of the gods and had no plans to serve them. As he picked up a spoon, Lee Jian saw his reflection in it and was surprised, immediately asking for a mirror. Lee Jian couldn't believe that all of his injuries were no longer visible. Even his decapitated arm was restored. While staring at his arm, he noticed a mark and immediately felt a surge of power coming from it. Then he received multiple notifications at once. Lee Jian was now able to use the power of Ophiuchus. He calmed down and tried to control the surge of power, but when he opened his eyes, he was met with a giant serpent. After touching the giant serpent, Lee Jian regained his senses. He was given the title Master of Ophiuchus. He reviewed the abilities and stats he had received. Regardless of the overpowered abilities he obtained, Lee Jian's plan was still to search for the saints who had run away and to kill the person who had betrayed him. At the site where the demon tower once stood, investigators were curious about who could have destroyed the tower. They were still unsure if the disciples were able to destroy the tower and defeat the boss Calamity. They remained uncertain about who could have accomplished all of it. A press conference was held by the Aries saint Yang Wei, addressing the rumors about the collapsed demon tower and Lee Jian's possible return. However, he only responded with no comment in front of everyone and then left. Inside his car, Yang Wei could no longer contain his rage. He had heard the name Lee Jian multiple times already and was curious if Lee Jian was truly alive, which meant he had survived in the tower for 20 years. Yang Wei tried to convince himself that the rumors weren't true. However, if they turned out to be true, then he and the other saints would be in danger. The Sagittarius saint, Hugo Otters, gets off the plane as he is about to have a meeting with the Prime Minister. While on the way, he receives an anonymous call but ignores it, thinking that it is the reporters again asking for any news about Lee Jian. He reminisces about what happened 20 years ago. Hugo was tasked by Lee Jian to deal with the calamities outside of the tower. He prays that his prophecy was wrong, but when he asks the other saints what happened inside the tower, they abandon him and return with only the head of the Crimson Eye. Their achievements are acknowledged, and the 12 saints, along with Hugo, are proclaimed as heroes, gaining power and authority. But Hugo can't believe that Lee Jian is gone and asks for a search to find him. Sadly, his request is denied by the Cancer Saint Zhang-Louis Moleng. Zhang-Louis reminds Hugo of the number of calamities inside the tower, and tells him that if he really wishes to look for Lee Jian, he may do so by himself. Hugo can't do anything as he understands the consequences if he dies inside the tower. Inside the car, he receives a call from the Prime Minister asking him if he has heard the news about the collapsed demon tower. Hugo immediately refuses any offers coming from the Prime Minister if he wishes to use Lee Jian for publicity. The Prime Minister immediately tells Hugo the reason, which puts him in a frantic state when he hears that the call he received earlier came from Lee Jian's exclusive line. Hugo tries calling back the number on his phone and hears a familiar voice on the other end. He immediately asks the driver to turn around and head to the airport. Inside the restaurant, Lee Jian is still with the two people he met at the place where the demon tower collapsed. They ask who he kept on calling. Lee Jian just responds that they will soon find out, but he is more interested in smartphones since they were not yet invented when he went inside the tower 20 years ago. When Lee Jian tries to check any news about himself, he almost breaks the phone after reading the opinions of other people about him. After calming down, he comes across a news article regarding his will. He cannot contain his anger anymore and destroys the phone when he reads that in his will, his properties and possessions were passed on to the 12 saints to save humanity. While pondering if he should announce his return, Lee Jian receives a warning that someone is watching him. Lee Jian goes out as he feels a familiar presence. He receives a warning that the household gods are creating a barrier and requesting a tribute. Lee Jian is about to start a fight with the household gods but overhears someone calling out his name. The two people Lee Jian is with warn him about the couple he is interacting with, as they are from the Gemini divine cadre. The couple insults Lee Jian, even calling him a coward. Lee Jian calls out the couple, referring to them as roaches, as he can no longer contain his anger towards them. The man was in front of Lee Jian and was about to insult him more, but was cut off when Lee Jian flicked his head, which threw him across the road. Thinking that she was not noticed, the woman was about to launch an attack but was immediately defeated by another flick on the head. The two people asked Lee Jian why he used his abilities in the middle of the street. Lee Jian responded that the couple would have died if he used his abilities, which surprised the two people. Lee Jian took the divine artifact from the fallen divine cadre. Lee Jian was curious as to why the man had a divine artifact when the saints are the only people that are supposed to carry one. It was explained to Lee Jian what had happened. Humanity almost went extinct from the calamities several decades ago, but they were able to survive thanks to the divine gods and the saints they chose. The saints gathered people to follow them and made divine cadres. The people who awakened by being granted powers from the saints were called disciples. They were ranked proportionally to their power. The power of the divine gods comes from the disciples' faith, so they have sorts of competitions to get people into their cadres. The household gods enjoyed the situation and urged Lee Jian to finish the couple as they desire to see blood. The household gods are like shadows of the divine gods, and opposing them is the same as opposing the divine gods. Lee Jian was furious to know that Yang Wei's goons were trying to fill their stomach with greed. With one step from him, the household gods immediately ran away, and the barrier was also destroyed. Lee Jian then asked if the man that carried the divine artifact asked if he is rich, since divine cadres have the most influence in the country. Seeing that the man is wearing all branded clothes, Lee Jian did not hold himself back and looted all of his belongings. Will Lee Jian deal with Hugo along with the other saints? Find out next time.